2020, Gail assumed the role of Director of Care Management for ECM, leading the exceptional team of established care managers. Gail received a Bachelor of Science in History from UCLA and a Bachelor of Science in Psychology from CSU Northridge. She also completed a graduate certification program in gerontology through CSU Sacramento, where she concurrently completed a 6-week class case management course certification. She is a California Residential Care Facilities for the Elderly RCFE certified administrator and is a state-approved instructor for RCFE administrator certification courses. Additionally, she is a volunteer for the Alzheimer's Association and a board member for Del Oro Caregiver Resource Center. Gail is a certified care manager through the National Academy of Certified Care Managers and a member of the Aging Life Care Association. Gail offers invaluable wisdom on the subject of aging. With that, I would like to turn the presentation over to Gail Arno. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maureen and Simone and Del Oro, for this opportunity. We very much appreciate a chance to talk to the caregivers. You guys, those of you caregiving, and I think we're all so much in that role of caregiving day in and day out, that we just greatly appreciate this opportunity to chat about this very unique time right now. I know it's very difficult. And our presentation, we'll try to talk a little bit about the COVID circumstances that we're all facing at this time, but our primary focus really truly will be honesty and how to support you and allow you and you know, almost authorize you to take care of yourself as well as the one you're caring for. And I know that's a very easy thing for me to say, but I will tell you, I'm a caregiver too. I don't have parents that I'm caregiving for at this time. They've all passed, bless them. But I do have an adult daughter who is disabled. And so all day long I care for people, and then I come home and see how I can assist her. So I get it. I know that some days are good and some days are not so great. And we fumble along and we make it happen. So I feel your pain and I feel your discomfort and I feel your joy at the same time. So we're going to talk a little bit about caregiving. Here's a quick overview here on this first slide. You know, understanding the impact you take on and that you bring to the table with this experience. Definitely want to talk to you about signs of stress and burnout. You know, we are no good to anyone if we are burned out and we are not able to provide to them the things that we hoped and want to provide to them. And then how do we stay healthy and well and resilient at a time where we are definitely being challenged day in and day out. I was returning from an appointment this morning and heard on the radio as an update that Sacramento, the new region that we go into lockdown effective tomorrow evening. So this is such a very gray time in everyone's lives, and we need to do the best we can with what we've got and find our peace with whatever is a shortcoming in our mind, and know that not a one of us is perfect in this experience, but this is a perfectly interesting experience that we're all having. So we'll move on to our next slide and talk a little about who is a caregiver. And I think this slide is particularly special because you can see the variety of caregiving roles and caregiving individuals that we see there. There's our gentleman in the upper left-hand corner who's just busy checking his watch. What looks to be in the middle screen there to me, maybe a son or a nephew who's showing some genuine concern and care for his loved one. On the right, we've got the busy worker bee who's probably trying to balance a bazillion different things right now. That lower left, we see maybe a granddaughter. I'm enjoying just wondering what all the roles are here with a grandfather or maybe a volunteer who's spending time with an older gentleman. And then the proverbial mom and child, or mom and daughter, or caregiver and recipient, just trying to manage. So what this tells us is that the caregiver role is a variety of roles played by a variety of players. And there's just no one simple template for the caregiving role. We all have a role in caregiving for ourselves and or others. So it's broad and wide. So here's a couple of facts that I think are just mind-boggling in my mind, but they come to you from a very good source, the Family Caregiver Alliance. They talked to us a little bit about some different facts about the role and the volume that we play in this experience. So in the first bullet point, you can see there 34.2 million Americans are providing an unpaid care role to an adult who might be over 50 years of age in just simply the past 12 months. 34.2 million. It may be, 1 hour, it may be 24/7 hours, but here we are providing an unpaid role, but a critical and mind-boggling role to those individuals. I'm speaking to the choir here. You know this, you're doing this. Look at the next statistic there. 16.1 million are providing an unpaid role or care for someone with Alzheimer's or other dementias. And this is what I see in my practice, is not only the physically frail, but the cognitively frail, and how very challenging that can be from time to time. I was on a Zoom call with a very devoted son the other day, a wonderful gentleman, and we were going to take the car away from mom, and it was necessary. Mom's very confused and has been lost many times while driving of late, and could do some damage and harm to others, if not herself. And his first comment to me was, well, Mom, Gail, I can't lie to my mom. And I said, you know what? That's your role now. And I mean, no, lying doesn't feel good, but it's your role now to compassionately fib to her, to give her the grace to make sure she's safe and sound. So again, we're providing all this unpaid care for someone with some of that confusion that we approach when we age. The next bullet point talks about the 18.5 billion, and that's billion hours of care that has an estimated dollar value of $234 billion. So this has a huge impact on us financially, on us emotionally, and so much of it goes unpaid and at times unrecognized, certainly by the recipient and potentially by family members and or others involved in the consensus of how well this care should go. And that's challenging at a minimum. 34% of our caregivers are over the age of 65. And we're going to talk about that implication as we go through a few more slides down the road. I know I am not 25 anymore, and I don't do so well with lack of sleep or too much on my plate. So what does it look like as we age and as we take on those responsibilities? 2/3 of our caregivers are women, so they're picking up a bulk of the responsibility. Look at that statistic, that final bullet point there. 1/4 of the caregivers are in that sandwich generation. So they're sandwiched between the young and the aging, and they're trying to provide care in between those age frames and take care of themselves and survive in this experience. So the caregiver is burdened at this point, very burdened. But they also, again, if supported properly and with those eyes wide open, they might be able to find some joy in all of this experience as well. We hope they do. We hope they do. Great difficulty. So they have to decrease their hours, take a cut in pay, take an an unpaid leave of absence. Maybe they exhaust their FMLA or their leave opportunities so that they can meet those caregiving responsibilities that they feel so obligated to meet. So this has not only a huge impact emotionally, but it can have a huge impact financially. So we've got to be cautious there and be aware of what we can support and what we can do. Take a peek at this. This is sobering in so many ways. And I actually will tell you honestly that I think these dollar amounts that you see here are just a little bit light. I'm going to tell you that these are minimums and try to elaborate on each and every one of these. So take a look, as an example, if the opportunity and the setting is a nursing home, potentially that nursing home cost can be $239 in a 24-hour period, or if extrapolated over a 30-day period, we're now looking at $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 a month to live in a skilled nursing facility or nursing home, as it might be. It's a significant amount of money. And so what you are doing to support an individual who stays at home is likely coming at far less of a cost, but far less of a payout than that, as it may be. In our assisted living facilities, both large and small, again, we're looking at a huge cost. And I would tell you in California, my experience has been this is a very low figure of maybe $155 per day or 24-hour period. Extrapolated out, it looks to be at least $3,800. Gosh, guys, I think you should prepare yourself for $5,000 to $8,000 a month for assisted living, as it might be. So again, very pricey entity and not always an option for everyone. If you take a peek at the in-home care, and this is the formalized in-home care with an agency, you can note in the parentheses there, we see a $30 an hour cost if you were to utilize just 4 hours a day, which is a great help, but there's 20 other hours in the day that you are likely manning the fort. If you just get a simple respite of 4 hours per day, you're looking at a monthly cost of $3,600 a month. So again, not an easy pill to swallow for individuals, but yet a bit of a respite if we're able to get 4 hours a day where we can walk away from the responsibility of caregiving. If you were to look at that in-home care figure and utilizing an agency, and I have some strong thoughts about agency, they are then the employer. You are not an employer. They are trained. They utilize background checked, trained caregivers coming into your home. They cover the liability concerns, the workers' compensation coverage, etc. If you were to take that figure and multiply it by a 24/7 dollar amount, you're looking at about $20,000 a month in full-time round-the-clock care in the home. So again, there is a dollar amount that I think very few can stomach, as it might be, but that's what you're doing, those of you who are caring for an individual 24/7 round the clock. That would be the price tag if you were not available to those individuals. And then if you take a peek at the adult daycare at the bottom of the page here, which is not accessible at this time in COVID. Very, very few settings are open because of the concern of the exposure. So they can be, however, much more cost effective at about a $70 a day figure. That would be looking at like something of about $840 a month if you were to use 12 days a month or 4 days a week, etc. So you can see that shows you the dollars that this industry requires and what you are bringing to the table if you are doing this in an unpaid fashion. And my hat is off to you for that in many, many ways. So what impact does this have on our caregivers? Well, I think the plethora of our caregivers are individuals who are older people themselves, and they continue to grow old. I know I'm doing that day in and day out. Every day that I'm here on this planet, I'm a day older, and I'm grateful for those days. But again, this is our cohort. Caregivers and those they're caregiving for are of that aged level, and so we have to be cautious about that. Of those caring for someone who is 65 plus, the average age of their caregiver is 63 years of age. So with 1/3 of those caregivers themselves in rather fair to potentially poor health. So we tend to put ourselves on the back burner when we are the responsible party for a loved one. We have to be careful there. We have to take care of ourselves as well. 70% of working caregivers, again, suffer a work-related challenge based on their dual responsibilities. So they feel that tear, that draw to the workload that they are carrying, which may keep the roof over the head of their loved ones, but they're also torn with that work-related devotion to the one that they're caregiving for. So they're pulled in all kinds of directions, and it really wears on the stamina of an individual. The one that really gets my attention most thoroughly here is that bottom bullet point. When you're caring for persons with dementia, it has been reported and tracked that this impacts the caregiver's immune system. So their overall well-being for potentially up to 3 years after their caregiving experience ends. They therefore have this increased opportunity or chance of developing a chronic illness themselves. So again, we think, oh, I made it to the finish line. We did a yeoman's job of taking care of our loved one. They're now gone, but the impact of what you've experienced with that managing of the care and the continual pull that you were in, it may impact you for up to 3 years. So there's a residual there. There's a carrying on of this experience. So I just, again, I know these are all very hard statistics and negative statistics to see, but they're real. And again, this one comes from the Family Caregiver Alliance. So we want to make sure, again, that we're taking the best care of ourselves that we possibly can, because we are as important as the individual that we're caring for. There's equal importance there, if you ask me. So here's some reality. Studies reveal that when someone's caregiving for a spouse and they're under some distress or stress, the caregiver, get this one, here's another scary one, has a risk of dying that is 63% higher than those of similar age who are not caregivers. So again, we have a same age or kind of same time frame age ability. So we as a spouse are caring for another spouse. We too are in that aging process. And so we have a 63% higher ratio or potential of dying than the one that we're actually caregiving for. It's a combination of those stressors that we get, the physical demands of that caregiving, putting ourselves on the back burner. This puts us at a significant risk for health issues as well. I was doing a really enjoyable assessment yesterday with a darling couple and the adult son of the gentleman. Gentleman is 98 years old, and his caregiver and companion was a mere 80 herself. And, she just continually said, gosh, I'm tired. I'm really tired. And again, we get it. She was exhausted. And one of my suggestions was maybe we get someone here in at night so you can get a good night's sleep and you can rest and be ready to face the music in the morning. And she said, oh no, I sleep pretty well. And then continued to go on and tell me how her loved one is up 4 different times at night. And yes, she hears them. And so her ear is perked and her eye is kind of wide open just to make sure he gets to and from the bathroom and settles back in and is comfortable. I don't call that a good night's sleep. That's 4 interruptions. It just doesn't speak to a good solid night's rest. So we have to be able to evaluate really what's working and what isn't working, and making sure that those physical demands and the stress of the environment are not putting us at risk as well. We're only as good as the shoulders we stand upon, that's for sure. So here are some signs and some stresses regarding caregiver burnout. I'm sure not a one of these is surprising to any of you who are in the current role of a caregiver. You may become easily angered with the person that you're caring for, and sometimes oh, you may be human. You may actually lash out at them and take it out on them. You know, you are but human. We can only do what we can do. So yes, we will all have moments where we may lash out because we are just spent and exhausted. It is not intended. It is hopefully not hurtful. But again, you've got to check and balance. You've got to ask yourself, boy, I'm really lashing out much more than I ever had before. Maybe I'm exhausted. Maybe I need a break. So watch that lashing out. Watch that easily triggered anger that you vent at someone who didn't ask for it, didn't mean it, and you didn't ask to deliver it to. But it could be a sign that I need a break. I definitely need a break. The potential of maybe some recent or significant weight gain or weight loss. In this COVID time, I think some of us are experiencing that freshman 15 that we thought we've heard so much about. We now have the COVID 15. But, is this a reflection of you just drowning sorrows or not and eating too much? Or do you not have enough time in the course of a day to stop for a moment and fuel yourself with good intake so that, again, you can come back and really be that caregiver extraordinaire that you want to be? I think right now we have ongoing feelings of doom, despair, and negativity. But I think one of the things we've been given of late is this understanding that particularly in these current circumstances, that we have a vaccine that is on its way to us, and that hopefully is giving us some sense of, okay, there's maybe some light at the end of the tunnel, albeit the tunnel's quite a distance away. But if you're having these ongoing feelings of just consistent doom and despair and negativity and drowning, again, a sign that, oh, this is all becoming too much for me, as it might be. I need to reach out and get some help. Some of us find that crying can be a good, wonderful release. I think us gals, maybe, not exclusively, I don't mean to pick on just us gals, but sometimes a good cry kind of lets it all out and allows us to refresh. If we're not getting any rejuvenation from that, or we find that we're tearful or teary for really minor issues or for really no good reason, as it might be, again, might be that issue of, wow, I'm really at my limit. I've hit that stress level and I've hit that burnout. And again, this lack of sleep or this dealing with some insomnia, we need that restorative sleep to jump back into the real world that we're facing day in and day out. Need to be talking with docs and getting some ideas on how we can get a better night's sleep, as it might be, so that we're ready and refreshed for the next morning. I think those are critical elements. A few more signs of stress and caregiver burnout that are scary and concerning. That feeling of isolation. Again, I'll go back to COVID and say that I think we're all feeling some bit of isolation in many ways. There's some safety in isolation, but no productivity in isolation as a 24/7 diet. So we've got to make sure that we have that support around us, or that support coming in that will assist us in not feeling quite so isolated. The sleep deprivation, as we've talked about, is a concern. And we want to address that and make sure we're getting those good night's sleep, getting that good night of sleep. Inactivity, we've got to move to feel that body, get that regeneration, taking those extra steps, getting that fresh air, trying to get that activity level at its greater point. That inactivity doesn't lend itself to good support and can be, again, that burnout sign. Those poor eating habits. I think we all went through a big challenge at the onset when COVID hit. How are we going to get those meals produced and our groceries attended to? And I think if there's nothing but a silver lining to this very dark cloud, I am hugely impressed with the fact that you can get just about anything delivered to the front door. Granted, right now, those poor delivery guys gals are struggling, but really you can get anything delivered. So poor eating habits should be addressed and put to bay with some good positive food intake as it might be. One of the other signs of burnout or stress may be aches and pains that weren't there before, but now present themselves in a way that is just really unacceptable to you. You want to address those and make sure that your doc is aware of aches and pains that weren't there previously, but now maybe are contributed to by the weight of the world on your shoulders or on your chest as you take care of someone who is unable to take care of themselves. That inability to exercise, we all have somewhere that we can take some steps and go outside and lift those knees high and march to and get some steps and paces in. But failure to exercise is, again, particularly if you've been one who's been pretty driven to exercise, can't go to a health club right now. So how do we get that exercise? But failure to exercise can be, again, a sign of that burnout that we've got to remedy and got to get back in place. There may be a feeling of fatigue, and this is hard because we hear of, aches and pains and fatigue being a part of the COVID diagnosis. But, again, when you didn't have fatigue before and now all of a sudden you're just feeling overwhelmed and burdened and exhausted, this could be a sign that you've hit your limit and you need some help. We've got to raise the flag up the pole and say, needs. No good can come of that. And that, again, I'll get to it tomorrow. I'll call the doctor next week for me. Again, this continues on week in and week out, and you're going to end up then with your own illness, as it might be. And then you're of no value to the loved one that you are trying to take care of. So we have to address our own needs as well as our loved ones and get some support in addressing those needs, as it might be, or we're going to end up with that chronic illness or that chronic concern. So here's the rub. And I wish I had an answer that was easy and simple, but finding the balance, that's what we're all up against. That difficult dance between guilt and resentment. And I often say to families, bargaining. We've got to bargain for the balance. We've got to give up this desire to be 100% result driven and find that dance and meet meet in the middle, finding that balance. Life is all about balance, and we're being pressured more and more to accept balance and to find balance. And I wish I had an easy answer for you on that one, but I encourage you to find that balance the best way that you possibly can. Not easy. I wish, again, I had a magic wand. I'd make that all work for you. I apologize, I don't. So let's talk a little bit about how do you take yourself a bit off the hook and be aware of what's really working for you, and really what, again, where you can bargain for some of that awareness. I think so many of our caregivers feel that they're a bit selfish in putting their own needs first. And I'm going to say the word selfish, it really, to me, it connotates a negative. I'd like us all to think about self-care versus selfish. I don't think it's selfish to have self-care, to put yourself first for a moment in time so that you know that you're tuned up and ready to go. So rather than thinking of it as being selfish, if you could think about it being just simply self-care, I think you'll find that it will go down. It'll be an easier swallow for you in that regard. So please take away that word. Take that word out of your vocabulary right now and replace it with, I'm just going to do a little self-care because I'm only as good to my loved one as I am healthy and rejuvenated. Some of our family members feel that they owe their loved ones, or that maybe they're the only ones that can do this job of caregiving. And, I don't think anybody owes anybody anything. Yes, we may desire, we may want to try to help. I can't tell you the number of times I've heard a loved one say, well, my mom changed my diapers and took care of me and taught me how to walk, and taught me how to, be independent. I owe this to her. You don't owe anything to anyone. You owe yourself an opportunity to do it the best way you can and to meet and find your patients with what it is that you can deliver. So again, take yourself off that hook. You do the best job you can with what you know to be today's circumstances, and that's all you can be expected to do and be. I think the other line there that I struggle with, that I'm the only one that can do this job the right way. That's a perfectionist, and nobody is perfect. So we have to let go of thinking that we're the only one that can do this job the right way. I would contend that you're probably the only one that can love this individual the way you love them. I won't argue with that. But I would also say that there are others, if given good tools, good direction, probably do the job for a short period of time so that you can rest and rejuvenate, regroup, and come back and do what is needed to be done. So again, I get a little, I push back a little bit when someone says no one can do it the way I can do it. I think we can describe the job and get the job done as it might be, and if we listen and we take good direction. There are some cultural issues to caregiving. Culturally, sometimes a family may feel that this is their job. They have to take care of their own. And I'll tell you on a personal note, I have a boatload of brothers, no sisters, and two of my brothers married individuals from outside the United States. And I know when they came to California or came to the United States, and they asked me what I do for a living, I explained to them, and they just kind of looked at me like I was kind of odd. Well, why would you have a job like that? Doesn't the family take care of their own? Because culturally in their world, yes, the family did perhaps step in and take care of their own. So I think we have to be very sensitive to what cultural elements go on. And I oftentimes will work with families on overcoming some of those cultural boundaries and some of those cultural concerns, making sure that we're very respectful of how the family might feel about someone from the outside coming in. Again, if that individual is coming out for a short or coming into the scenario for a short period of time to do a respite and give someone a break, then again, I think we've met the cultural concerns of the family. But we need to listen to that and make sure that we're not overstepping bounds. The second to last bullet point there talks a little bit about some caregivers feeling like they really were given no choice and they were forced into this role of primary caregiver. I think you have to speak up, folks. I think we have to say, I can help, but I can't do it all. Feeling forced, letting families know, giving them boundaries, talking about your limits. These are hard questions and hard conversations to have, and I can't respect these enough. But I remember distinctly, again, with one of my brothers as and we were caring for my mom. My eldest brother called me one day and he said, "Oh, Gail, Mom needs help with a bath." And I, as the oldest son, I don't want to give my mom a bath. I said, "I hear you. I don't blame you. Let's get a professional in. to give mom that shower or that bath. You can step away for a few minutes and they can come in and do their job, and mom can have the dignity of that experience, and you can have the dignity of not crossing that boundary. So again, if he hadn't spoken up, if we hadn't queried, he would have been put in that forced role of doing something that he just didn't feel was acceptable in his relationship. So we've got to be aware of what the circumstances are. Divvy up the tasks, but nobody will know if you don't speak up. And that final bullet point really resonates with me. Oh my gosh, I'm horrible about this. But we don't ask. And when we ask, sometimes we're resistant to help. We've got to stop that. We've got to. There is no weakness in asking for help. I actually think the stronger the caregiver, the more they'll ask for help. So let's accept that we can maybe not do it all and we need some help. And people come in and they say, oh, I want to help you. How can I help you? Oh, I don't know, just call me in a week or two. I've as much as suggested to families that you perhaps make a little bowl, and in that bowl are 20 strips of paper that say, please come and give me 1 hour on Tuesday at 12 o'clock. Be very specific about what you want when someone offers to help, and put them in the schedule on the calendar with a very specific task. And then you'll know that it's not nebulous. You won't feel guilty about it. They asked, you gave them direction, and the transaction occurred. So don't be reluctant to ask for that help and then receive it when it's given. These are tough things to overcome. We're born, the minute we come out of that womb, we are so ready to become independent. We start, holding the bottle on our own, and we start crawling, and we start walking, and we get those kids off to school. We spend a lifetime of trying to be independent, and all of a sudden the light switch flips, and we're now asking people to be dependent and ask for help and take in and receive that help. It's a tough and fine line, but again, here's the bargaining. We've got to give up a little bit of our need to be controlling, or our need to take it on and do it all and bear it all, and actually ask for some help and receive it when it's offered. I think that's a critical part of life, and it's a tough one. You're not alone if you struggle with that, but if you're looking for growth, this is a good growth area. So I encourage you to accept that. Here's one of my favorite ones, favorite elements of this presentation, and it's so true, you guys. I know we hear this, when we were able to travel and get on a plane and listen to the flight attendant tell us, but this is so important. We put our own oxygen mask on first, and then we attend to those around us. If we are depleted, we are not going to be able to help others. So we've got to take care of ourselves and then help those that we are around. It's an old story, but it's a critical story, and more critical today than ever with the pandemic and the issues that we're facing. So again, twofold: take care of you, and then you can take care of others. There's no doubt in my mind. So here's a couple of tips that we might suggest that you consider and try to incorporate into your daily routines. Try to reduce that personal stress, as best you can. Examine, whether your role is a voluntary situation, or if you feel that you had no choice, where do you go from there? Are there other family members who can step up? If they're not, then we need to look at professional support, because I can't do this 24/7. And we often say, very fond of this saying, that the caregiver who lives the furthest away knows the most. Let that resonate for a minute, don't you? It's just amazing when you call your loved one, your cousin who lives in Ohio, and they say, well, how come you're not doing this with Auntie, and how come you're not doing that with Auntie? Well, do you want to come and live with Auntie for a week? And you tell me how you think this is going to go. Again, those who live the furthest tend to know the most. So we've got to assess our personal situation and make sure that we're in the right format. And if not, we've got to speak up and we've got to get the support that we need. If you're there, if you are there for a hope of healing a damaged relationship, you might want to make sure that you set some pretty good expectations of what you can achieve and what you're not going to achieve. And I have story after story that I could tell you, of people wanting to come in and remedy all those broken elements of relationships by being the best caregiver they can ever be. And, it may not be the time to remedy those damaged relationship elements, when everybody is not at their best. So don't set yourself up for a failure or a disappointment in that regard. This may not be the best time to improve or correct our relationship as it might be. I remember, again, picking on my own circumstance, my dear sweet mother, the eldest of my four parents, my in-laws and my mother, and my own parents, she had cancer, and she was on hospice. And, it's kind of an easier role. I wouldn't wish that upon anyone, but we knew that there was an end in sight. And you can do anything for about a 6-month period. You can put life on hold, and you can bargain, and you can do anything for a short period of time. I remember my brother speaking up and saying, "I'm going to move in with Mom. I was a horrible teenager, and I owe it to her to take care of her." We kind of giggled and scoffed with him a little bit, but he was dead serious. He said, I owe this to her. But again, Mom came up with a cancer diagnosis, a hospice scenario in December. We lost Mom in May that following year. And I think my brother had 6 months of really setting the record straight and doing the job he wanted to do to get that relationship back in shape. It was a short-term prospect. It worked well. We gave him support, but this is maybe not the time to heal those damaged relationships. Do the best you can with what you've got, and set out a scenario that's going to support you and your loved one the best way you can. I think it's really important that you prioritize and pick and choose your battles. Now, you may not resolve everything, and so you can't, if you're not able, and not many of us are able to do everything, then pick and choose what you want to fight about. Oftentimes, I know I'll talk to a lot of families, and they'll say, "Mom's going to bed in her clothing. I don't know what that's all about. I put her pajamas out every night, and she goes to bed in her clothing." And my comment to that would be, gosh, are there pajama police I don't know about? Because there aren't. If Mom goes to bed in her clothing, her daily clothing, is that your biggest problem? Could you get her up in the morning and say, "Mom, we need to wash the arms and the face and the body." And when we get her out of those yesterday's clothing, then we'll put her in a fresh pair of clothing. Or maybe Mom's clothing doesn't match, or Mom wears one red shoe and one blue shoe. Again, if it isn't hurting anyone, then let's pick and choose those battles appropriately. Fight for the ones you believe in, and let go of the ones that you can let go of. I think it will alleviate a little bit of stress. And if you're getting opinions from, the peanut gallery, who's, checking family members who are checking in with you, again, pick and choose those battles with them. Make sure that you're talking and you're letting them know, you're worried about Mom not being in her pajamas every night, then you be the one that comes over and gets her into her jammies, and you have that battle, because I have too many other battles in the course of the day that I'm going to take on with her. So let's let go of that concern. Again, I can't stress enough your own personal physical health. It is so very important. And if you get nothing else, again, here comes a neighbor who says, I'd really like to help you out. How can I help you out? Great. I have an eye doctor appointment tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Can you be here at 2:30? I'll give you all the instructions I can. I'll be gone for an hour and a half. I'll get my eyes examined and I'll be back before you know it. Here's my cell phone number. Off I go. Take advantage of those opportunities and take care of yourself. You are only as good as your strength to take care of this situation and take care of this loved one. And then I think, guys, you have to identify and find your peace with that you cannot change. You may not be able to remedy those struggling long-term relationships. You may not be able to, hear your loved ones say, I do love you. I hear so many adult children say, I don't know, Dad never told me he loved me. Maybe at the end of a lifetime of closing out with an Alzheimer's diagnosis, you're not going to hear that I love you, or I was proud of you, or boy, you did amazing things with your life. Find your peace with, what it is that you cannot change, what you're not going to correct, what you're not going to repair at this stage. Do the best job you can possibly do and move forward. You're only but human. I know that's not a surprise to the bulk of us, but I'm trying to take you off the hook a little bit here and give you the authorization to not be perfect. There's not a one of us that is. So take yourself off that hook. Couple of ideas: keep moving, keep exercising. Again, I know we can't necessarily get to the gym right now. We may not have the membership, the time, the financial perspective for that, but we sure can keep moving, even if it's just a walk around the block. I walk with a friend every Sunday morning. We leave at 7:30 in the morning because she's a morning person. I'm not a morning person. And every Sunday morning I think, oh, do I want to do this? And by the time I come home from my 2 hours of walking and catching up with her, I feel so much better. I spew all my worries and problems. I listen, I put on my ears and I listen to her worries and problems. Just that moving, that outdoor air, I feel 100%, ready to face the day in that regard. It may not last forever, but it sure keeps me, keeps those endorphins going, and it keeps my mind clear and feeling better. I'm ready to tackle the day every Sunday morning, even though I struggle with getting up and getting moving. Get that good sleep. I don't know about you, but I'm not 25 anymore. I remember those all-nighters we used to pull and we didn't think anything of it. I can't do that anymore. I need good REM restorative sleep to face the day the best way I can. So don't give up on that sleep. Fueling our body with some good nutritious foods, that again, very helpful, very, very important to make sure that we're getting the nutrients we need. Nobody's perfect in that regard, but if you can follow and get some good nutrition in your system in the course of the day, again, that day might not seem so insurmountable. We are always preaching to our clients, our residents, our loved ones, stay hydrated. Why would we be any different? Hydration is our salvation to some extent. We'll stay away from it, problems, infections, etc., as long as we stay hydrated. So as boring as that water might be, it is so good for us, and it is so important to our well-being. Try to stay away from the smoking. No good can come of the smoking for any of us. These are lifelong habits, I know, for some. Again, staying away from those detrimental behaviors can be very beneficial to us. Remain social. I think that's critical. This is our newest platform, isn't it? And I think everybody's begun to become comfortable and at least familiar with Zoom or FaceTime or all of the web. It's not perfect, but they do allow us to stay in touch. And again, no man is an island. We need to remain social as best we can. And I think probably we should have put this in capitals, but I am a true believer that we should be laughing. We should be laughing at ourselves, with others. If we're not laughing, we're crying. There is humor in everything. I don't think we should make light of anyone's situation. We're not laughing at anyone. We should be laughing with everyone. A good laugh releases, again, endorphins and brings us back into a mode of thinking, okay, I can handle this. I can do this. I think every day, I've been in this industry 25 years, and I think to myself, I've seen and heard it all. And the new day dawns, and something new, some new experience crosses my plate, some unique and special individual or unique and special circumstances. And I stopped judging a long, long time ago, and instead I pursued laughter. A good belly laugh can make all the difference. So again, with one another, never at one another, but laughing can make a huge difference in all of our lives. So let's try to laugh from time to time. So again, these are some further suggestions. Some of these are going to be harder right now to do because we are in such precarious times. But again, that self-care, and notice now, we didn't say selfish, we said self-care. Go for that walk. Ask a family member or a friend to sit with your loved one while you're gone. Bring your cell phone if you need to. Let them know the route you take. But again, even 45 minutes of just alone breathing time as you move that body will be amazing in your pursuit of rejuvenation, as it might be. Here we suggest try a concert, a spa treatment, maybe a dinner out. All of those difficult to do now, but certainly you could buy yourself something special. But again, that has a short-lived premise. But the bottom line here on that practicing self-care, you deserve the self-care and the preservation there. So whatever it might be, we really encourage that self-care. Support groups can be very, very beneficial. I know they're not for everyone. If I had a nickel for each individual who I've suggested attend a support group who says to me, oh, I'm not really that kind of person. And that's completely understandable. But if you are at all comforted by those who are in the same boat, generally speaking, that you are, it is a great opportunity to share some of those feelings and some of those tools, and knowing that you're not alone. Most of our support groups, I'm sorry to say, have gone online because that's the best way that we can practice now. But again, I think a support group, it can be very beneficial. I know my daughter joined one and it was online. And at the close of the 8 sessions that she had with this support group, she was so proud of herself. The instructor, the facilitator, I guess I should say, he emailed her and said, you participated so intently in the support group. You helped so many in that support group. I had comment after comment from others who said, gosh, she really had some experiences and she really talked about her experience. It helped me so much. My daughter maybe didn't get so much out of the 8 sessions, but her sense of self was so great after hearing from the facilitator that she made a difference in someone else's life. And it just filled her with a sense of purpose. So again, a support group can be very, very helpful for many. It may not be your cup of tea, but I hearken you to try it and see if it might be. And I hope you get some good results as an outcome. And then again, that asking for help, and I think more importantly, accepting help. So very challenging and so hard to do. Again, there are informal and formal resources that are available. When I speak or mention informal, those are the friends, the church members, the relatives that say very casually, gosh, I'll help you. You seem overwhelmed. You want to make sure that you book those individuals using whatever mechanism. Get your calendar out and put them on your calendar so they know they have an obligation. The trouble and the problem with informal resources to give you help is that they may have a conflict ultimately. Now the scenario I would use as a typical scenario is your neighbor comes over and says, I'd be very happy to help you. They book a time and a day, and before you know it, they call and say, oh, my granddaughter has a piano lesson that day. My daughter can't take her, so I'm going to. That's fine. You can't shame them. It was a good attempt. It meant well. It just didn't happen. Then if you exhaust those informal mechanisms, that's when I encourage you to go to formal resources. And these are the caregiving agencies. They are important. They are critical because they have to come. They have to show up. They have to, this is their job. And so you can count on these formal elements. So it is difficult, again, informal's lovely. Formal, that they are obligated. There is a transaction here that must happen. So again, I think it's wise to maybe have a combination of informal and formal. The formal, you can certainly know that you're going to get that help and you can count and bank on it. The other, it hopefully will happen, but it may not. So again, I'd have both resources available. This one is really, this is the question I get asked so very often, and that's, when do I say it's enough? When do I say when? When do we pull the trigger and say, I can't do this anymore. I'm over my head. I can't sustain this, etc. There is no concrete answer. The third Tuesday of every month, you sit down and you reevaluate. No, this is a very personal decision. So I think you have to do an assessment of your circumstances and say to yourself, when my loved one is no longer safe, I have to make some changes. When my loved one could harm themselves or others, I have to make some changes. When my own health or my own well-being, my own safety is at risk, I have to make some changes. And when the stress of caregiving is impacting your ability to provide the care that is necessary for your well-being and for your loved one's well-being, you have to say, enough's enough. Many individuals say, but I promised my mom I would never put her in a facility, or I promised my mom I would quit my job and take care of her full time. I think those are very irresponsible promises that you would make, because we don't know 10, 20 years ago what we're facing when those situations come to the forefront. So here's what I'm going to tell you. What you should say to a loved one is, whenever pressed for, you'll never leave me, right? You'll never put me in a facility, right? I think what you need to respond with is, Mom, Dad, Auntie, Uncle, cousin, we will make the best decision at the time, considering all the factors that we can make together so that everyone is served, is your best answer. Don't tell them, oh, I promise I'll never. Oh, I promise I'll never. Mom will make the best decision we possibly can, taking into account safety and everyone's well-being when we're faced with that situation. So to make those statements, you've got to remind yourself, it's not black or white. It's very gray these days. And I think, again, remember, you're not alone. There are many in your boat. Reach out to the professionals. I think Del Oro is a wonderful organization to get validation and support from. Am I doing this right? Am I doing this well? How am I doing? Are other people facing this? Phone calls to, the professionals who can support you and say, You're not alone. What tools can we find for you? What information can we get to you? What can we do to try to support and help you? But again, you're not alone. You may feel it. I get it. You may definitely feel it, but I want you to be reminded that if you are willing to reach out and ask for help, I promise you it's out there. In some way, shape, or form, it's definitely out there. Please don't feel alone.